I'm just sounding the alarm now. I'm not going to stand by anymore on this. And I think it's starting to impact price action. Within 2 to 8 years, quantum computer will exist with enough qubit processing power to effectively break the Bitcoin elliptic curve cryptography. We can't afford to be 1 minute late. It's going to take at least 6 to 12 months just to get everyone in the network to move their coins. If it's not agreed on next year, I think it's too late. That doesn't necessarily solve the other big elephant in the room. It could be the biggest bear market we've ever seen. So the question is like, what are we doing about it? Most TradFi banking systems have already upgraded to some form of quantum-proof encryption. It's also in ETF disclaimers now. The Department of War is talking about quantum. Trump's meant to have an executive order coming out for quantum computing soon. A lot of the other developers in the space, they're ignoring the reality of it. It's just on an exponential curve. We need to move on it really fast. I want to see it solved in next year, to be honest. It might be 2 years away, it might be 4 years, but there's going to be that ChatGPT moment.
Archie.
I see a really growing and starting to become relevant risk with quantum computing. And it's starting to get talked about more. And I think that is going to be a headwind until it's solved, because there's a lot of things there that are not being discussed that are significant risk factors for Bitcoin in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I just don't see us capturing the same flows as gold until something like that is solved on.
Well, that's a really interesting point because, you know, I'm not a very technical person. I don't have the pedigree to be able to have a strong opinion on that. But from what I've seen from people who are technical is that, you know, whatever risks are posed by quantum computing will be solved also by quantum computing. What do you think about that?
I guess what you're saying, there are solutions, right? Like this is all somewhat solvable, but there are complexities to it. There's various Bitcoin bits, so Bitcoin improvement proposals to change the code to make addresses quantum proof, for example. Jameson Lopp's got one. There's a couple others out there. The problem is not necessarily the technical side, but getting consensus and movement to agree on a solution. So if we all agreed today, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to migrate everyone to quantum proof wallets. This is the solution. We're happy with it. It's going to take at least 6 to 12 months just to get everyone in the network to move their coins to this new infrastructure. And that's best case scenario. So just based on the limitations of the transaction throughput in the blockchain for Bitcoin, 10-minute blocks, etc., it would take 30 days just based on the current traffic to move coins from one wallet to another. That's if there's no other organic traffic. If you want to then do a test transfer, right, because you're moving life savings, it's 60 days. So you want to allow for the organic traffic, double it again at least. So you're looking at least 6, 12 months to get everyone to move across to quantum proof solutions. So we've got a 1-year lead time at the best case. That doesn't necessarily solve the other big elephant in the room, which is Satoshi's coins. So there's about 1 million coins that are lost by Satoshi. There's another few million, right, of other lost coins or unclaimed potentially wallets or who knows what, coins, which are exposed with their public address. So exposed public address is the biggest risk because a quantum computer can basically back calculate the private keys from it. All of Satoshi's coins are exposed because they're on an early signature methodology that Bitcoin used at the time. So there's basically a gold mine there of, call it $100 to $200 billion, give or take, probably more on to the upside for a quantum machine in theory to capture on, right? So how would that look? Within 2 to 8 years, we don't know the exact number, quantum computer will exist with enough qubit processing power to effectively break the Bitcoin elliptic curve cryptography. And that's based on needing 2,330 qubits, which is what this big white paper scientific study found a few years back. And the people who wrote that were doctors at Microsoft, IonQ, the biggest quantum company in the world, Meta. So these are pretty heavy hitters. That kind of qubit range, 2,300, is forecast by the top 4 quantum companies in the world to happen between 2028, 29, 2030. So 4 or 5 years roughly on average. Some forecasts are earlier. And then that's just one paper, but then add in all the other kind of leading players in the field. McKinsey is saying Q days within 2 to 9 years. That's when you can break RSA encryption. RSA encryption is stronger than Bitcoin's ECC. So Bitcoin ECC breaks years before that. Jameson Lopp thinks the risk is 50% within, I think he said 4 to 7 years. But basically anyone who's paying attention to the rate of qubit growth, which is faster than Moore's law and linear on an exponential curve, and there's nothing slowing down, is basically expecting somewhere in that range, 2 to 8 years with a very high probability at sort of 4 or 5 year mark. The Department of War in the US recently said they think that Q-day risk is very real within 3 years on the aggressive side, right? That's obviously like a worst case scenario, but it's some probability, right? So the question is like, what are we doing about it? Because the first piece of meat on the chopping block is Bitcoin. It breaks before all other encryption, and it's also the biggest honeypot, right? You can, in theory, you probably wouldn't go after Satoshi's coins because everyone's looking at that wallet. You'd probably go after some other big wallets that haven't moved their coins in 8-9 years or have public addresses that are pretty stale. You know, there's billionaires out there with hardware wallets in safes that they're probably not actively monitoring. You'd probably go and steal a bunch of those coins and just start slowly selling it out. And then if things start to become public, then you just nuke Satoshi's coins, right? So we have a pretty big risk out there to address.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why I've been monitoring this field for a couple of years. Our fund has been investing in the last couple of years because I've been seeing significant change in it. I just have always been interested in quantum computing because I studied a little bit of quantum physics at university. I'm no expert, I wouldn't claim to be, but it's a significant risk factor. And it's not like it's all solvable, but the problem is the lead times and getting consensus. Well, it's not all technically solvable because the Satoshi coins and the who's going to move them, who's going to upgrade them. That's the other risk factor. So there's two problems. One is getting the majority of coins across to quantum safe wallets and systems. It also means all brand new hardware wallets, all the ledgers and everything, all in the bin. They should be replaced. So significant work has to be done. And that's why I've kind of been getting really vocal about it in the last few months, especially because I'm like, I'm just sounding the alarm now. I'm not going to stand by anymore on this. And I think it's starting to impact price action because people are, talking about this. It's also in ETF disclaimers now. The Department of War is talking about quantum, right? Trump's meant to have an executive order coming out for quantum computing soon because China's spending double the US on quantum and you can't lose quantum supremacy. So it's becoming a big topic. And I think more and more billions are just going to flow into this research and take it a lot further. So I'm kind of getting really vocal on it, and I really want to see a solution for Bitcoin agreed on, right? Not necessarily rolled out, but agreed on next year. Because if it's not agreed on next year, I think it's too late. If it's agreed on next year, then we can roll it out in theory, best case, by 2027, which is 2 years from now. And then that's at the front end of the quantum risk, right? We can't afford to be 1 minute late. If maybe it's 2% chance or 5% chance that there's a quantum risk in 2027, 2028. But if we're 1 minute too late, it's over, right? Like the trust of Bitcoin is built in the code. Its entire value is based on trust and not having to trust other people trusting in the code. But if you can't trust the code, this thing collapses, in my opinion. So
what's the developer community doing on this and sort of other prominent people in the technical community like Adam Back, Nick Szabo has recently become reactivated on Twitter. Do they have positions on this?
So they do, and they all have kind of varying positions. Jameson Lopp is the one I'm most aware of, Bitcoin OG core developer that's really kind of speaking about this at conferences as well. He's a bit more conservative in saying that the risk is, as I think I said, don't quote me, but 4, 5, 6, 7 years out. But that's a 50% risk, right? So if the 50% risk is 4, 5, 6, 7 years out, China's spending double the US. We don't know what their government research is doing, right? So the real risk could be 3 years out or 4 years or 2.5 years. So we don't know the exact number. So the point for me is that we need to get in early, or if you're 1 minute late, it's too late. It's over. So they do have tech solutions for wallets. Like I said, the Bitcoin improvement proposals, but it's getting consensus and action on this. A lot of the other developers in the space are, I don't think, following quantum enough. not to name names, but they're basically saying it's 10 years out or 20 years out, but they're ignoring the reality of it. Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, said in January, quantum's 15 to 30 years away, and the entire quantum market nuked 60% in the next 24 hours. But then 2 months later, he said, I was wrong about the timeline of quantum. And then in June, he said, we're at an inflection point now with quantum. And then last month, he was investing billions in quantum. So I think he didn't really understand where it was at. And I know a lot of the quantum companies have been talking to him since, like getting heavily involved, and he's now investing deeply in them. And they have a quantum product, and they're basically part of the quantum development process now as well at NVIDIA. So it's all happening. Yeah.
There's always the risk of a ChatGPT moment as well, where nobody was really expecting any kind of
That's exactly it.
AI application to take hold of the world, and it just exploded on the scene. And that really set the cat amongst the pigeons, because I don't think even the AI industry was expecting anything like that.
That is exactly, that's what I've been also saying a lot recently, is it's like waiting its ChatGPT moment where, I think Altman even said, I heard him say a couple of years ago that, ChatGPT 4 or 5 years ago, so call it 2020, was just terrible, right? Like the product was just horrendous, but it's just on an exponential curve. So like if you use quantum today, you'll hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's useless, you can't do this, or the downtimes are really high. Yeah, okay. It's an average product today, but nonetheless, it's still being used in medicine, drug discovery, and bond markets by HSBC in showing like 30, 60% improvements in efficiency in various use cases already in multiple industries, in the defense space, many places that has utility today. But obviously still it's super niche, it's super early, the systems are not that robust yet, right? But like you said, you just follow the trend, right? it's an exponential trend, and it's doubling every 18 months faster than Moore's law. And it might be 2 years away, might be 4 years, but there's going to be that ChatGPT moment, I think, where they just unleash thousands and thousands of qubit capability, and it'll just impact every industry. And you're either on quantum-proof communication systems and security, or you're not, and that's where the risks are.
So, I mean, the quantum risk is not just to Bitcoin; it's to the entire digital economy. All of the digital infrastructure, and that's, real world infrastructure too. Like everything is digital. Our water infrastructure, power infrastructure, gas, everything is digitally managed now. So like these are also at risk. So my question is like, why aren't we seeing a broader discussion around these risks in in politics, in the media, amongst experts, in a similar vein to what we saw with the lead up to the Y2K bug that didn't eventuate. Not to suggest that this is any kind of hoax. It's very real, but we're not seeing any kind of urgency or an acute sense of danger.
People don't realize what is happening there. There is, $55 billion is being committed globally by governments on quantum proofing systems and quantum development. The US recently increased it by $4 or $5 billion, so they more than doubled it a few months ago. And as I said, Trump is expected to release an executive order on this soon, because China's spending like 16 billion on it. Most TradFi banking systems have already upgraded to some form of quantum proof encryption, so they're not really at the same risk. Those that are an RSA, most banks, as use 2FA, right? So if you have 2FA, you're basically quantum proof in a format, like as long as you've got the right 2FA, and you've got a device where it's not, that isn't exposed in some format, right? A quantum machine can't just, it can maybe guess your password, but if you've got 2FA, it can't do the two things at once, because you've got 3 attempts, right, with 2FA or what have you. So, actually most TradFi stuff is quantum proof in some format. Obviously, there are things that will be exposed, like you mentioned, power, or could be any form of infrastructure. There'll be gaps, right? We're not going to capture everything. I'm sure there will be quantum hacks that become known in the future. Quantum supremacy is a really big power, right? If you've got the best quantum capability, and China does have the best machines today, then you have some significant power. There's also, argument that people are collecting data now, like that is encrypted in RSA or what have you, spy intelligence type things, and with the intent of decrypting later to uncover secrets. Obviously, there'll be historic secrets at that point, and don't know what the value of those is. But yeah, there'll be a lot of things that come out of this, and things that will, it's like we get hacks today, right? How many data providers and platforms and Dropbox and all these different things have had different hacks and formats that have exposed information, leaked papers, and caused issues for users. And I think we'll get more of that. At the same time, there'll be other opportunities, because if you have post-quantum communication or quantum process to basically encrypt your data, it can be effectively hack proof, or you can always have visibility of who's inspected the data, or if it has been inspected. So there'll be all sorts of new systems that come out of this, and society will move on and develop and adapt, as it always does. And I don't think it's necessarily a huge threat long term. As I said, I think most financial providers and governments are looking at this really deeply and adapting to it. My main concern with Bitcoin is not that we can't fix it. It's just that this network is historically really slow, and that's why I'm getting really vocal on it. I'm optimistic we'll get there and solve it, but we need to move on it really fast. I want to see it solved in next year, to be honest, because I'll have significant concerns if we don't. And then we also have to have a debate as a community. What are we going to do? And this is a really hard one I don't have the answer to, but what are we going to do with all the lost coins, or coins that just don't migrate to quantum proof wallets? For example, if we, again, came up with a solution today, and we say it's about 12 months to get everyone across to that solution, what happens with the 30, 40% of coins that don't move across for whatever reason? They're forgotten, they're in a safe, they're your dad has them, or the Satoshi's coins, whatever, right? Like, what do we do with them? Do we give them a deadline? Do we say, okay, if you don't move in 6 months, they're being burnt? Or, is that even agreeable to people? I think most people wouldn't agree to that. But if we don't do that, they will be owned by a quantum computing company within the next 10 years.
Well, that's okay. That's okay if it is. No, I mean, there's no need to burn any coins or anything like that, because if people leave their coins exposed, they're going to be taken away, right? So
yeah, but
you could be in jail, for example, and you can't move your coins.
I think if you play the game through, it's a bit of a risk, though, if we don't do something, because if you and I are different quantum computing companies, and you're ahead of me by 6-12 months, and you're like, oh, I've just cracked it, and I'm coming, and there's another 100 companies coming for the same thing, and government agencies, Russia, North Korea, who knows what, sure. Right? Mm-hmm. Right? What are you going to do? You're not going to just, I think you're going to dump your coins as soon as you can. You're going to sell it and unlock 100 billion.
There's definitely a risk to the price of Bitcoin, and we can't divorce that. We can't separate the price from what most people are concerned about. We absolutely are. Then there's the other thing is are you undermining sovereignty by saying we're going to do something with the coins if they're not moved to an updated protocol or whatever? It's just...
Yeah, it's a tricky one. There's not necessarily a right answer here. But I think we probably need to have could be something broad, like 12 months, with some kind of transition phase maybe, or because if you go through that scenario of, say, we don't know what the exact number is, but say it's 30% of coins get sold into, that's not going to be, it's going to be just more than price impact, because the whole value prop of Bitcoin is low inflation or no inflation, the hardest money in the world. If 30% of supply is just being unlocked in 12 months, I don't think this is going to end well. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's probably conflating two different things. I think it's the inflation in available supply as opposed to active supply. It's probably two different things, but I take your point that if suddenly they become active, more coins become active in an unnatural way as a result of a hack, then that poses certain risks to market structure, liquidity, and price risk as well. But I'm guessing a lot of Puritans will say, the number be damned, I'm more interested in sovereignty.
There's good points for both sides. I'm not I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
either one is right, but it's going to have a big impact. It's probably going to cause the next bear market at the very least, and it could be the biggest bear market we've ever seen if we don't have a good solution. Yeah.
Speaking of solutions, is there a BIP that you think is earmarked to be the most likely solution to this problem?
I don't want to jump in and critique on that because I'm not the right expert to talk to it. I have great respect for Jamison Lopp and his work and his security practices generally. So I'd encourage people to look at and review his BIP and the others out there, and review the code, test it, talk about it, share thoughts on it. I basically just want to get the talk happening. I just want people to start talking about this to get to a solution in advance, right? That's the main thing here, is just getting in early, because either early or it's too late.